That's a huge development. You understand? We are told that our population, the population of most countries, but our population, more than 51% of our population is made up of women. So if we do not have policies, if we do not have attitudes, that speak to the inclusion of women in the national development effort, we are stabbing ourselves in the heart. It means that we are ignoring this potential force for development. And it does not make sense for a country like Ghana, which is bankrupt or near bankrupt, to ignore 51% of the population. I think that this symbol, represented by the taking of the oath of office by Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, does not resolve the problem of the inequality that women face. It doesn't by itself. But it's a symbol, it's a symbolism, it's a symbol of what can happen. And I want to hope that she will take this opportunity, which has been given her by the people of Ghana, to open the doors, for women's participation. And when we talk about women's participation, we are talking not just about women jumping into the fray. We are also talking about the preparation of women for the task ahead. Access to education for women, equal access to education, or the introduction of affirmative action when it comes to education is so very important for the advancement of women. There are many other issues, and those that I have concentrated on have been the extension of maternity leave for women. Because the 3-month maternity leave for women is so limiting that it does not make it possible for women who want to give birth to give their all to the national development effort. And I insist that we should extend maternity leave at least, and I mean at least, to 6 months for women. Then there's the issue of the establishment of what do they say, creche, whatever they say, at workplaces. It's important to enhance the participation of women, and so on. Then this senseless decision to impose taxes on sanitary pads is something that can be addressed, and so on. There's so many other issues which can be addressed. But I'm happy that for the first time, you had a woman on the podium taking the oath of office as vice president. That by itself does not resolve all the problems. And I want to hope that this will be the first step towards the emancipation of women, towards the inclusion of women in the broad national development effort. Now, for those of us who watch the ceremony on television, on the screens and so on, we left off with the impression that it was a grand ceremony, that things went well and so on. But later on, listening to those who were on the ground, it does appear that there were some difficulties. Indeed, I spoke to a 75-year-old diplomat who told me that it was his worst day. Okay? And he said it was his worst day because of the arrangements of movements. They were asked to leave the grounds even before the president had finished delivering his speech. So they couldn't see what was happening. And we were asked to move from the grounds to the conference center, the Accra International Conference Center. Some of them did not have access to the bus. So these diplomats, fully dressed in their suit and tie and so on, walked all the way to the Accra International Conference Center. I mean, it was so discomforting for them, Initially, arrangements have been made for all the ambassadors and so on to go on a bus. For those who were on the ground, some of them saw some ambassadors coming in their cars and altering the situation and so on. All those things were problematic. Now, Solo is not the only person who has expressed concern about His Excellency, the President of Burkina Faso, carrying his sad arm. I've heard it many times. I find absolutely nothing wrong with that. Indeed, as a matter of fact, we should see it as a display of a very high level of confidence and comradeship among the two heads of state. If the head of state of Ghana is comfortable with his colleague, carrying his sidearm in his presence and so on, what does that mean? Can you imagine the level of confidence that exists between the two of them? And I've seen all the videos. The level of confidence, brotherliness and so on, between, Ibrahim Traore and John Dramani Mahama is extraordinary. And that's the kind of thing you saw between Nkrumah and Ahmed Sekuturi and Modibo Keita and others. I mean, I saw them at a place I thought it might be the president's house. My goodness, I was so heavily impressed. This is what we must commend. In any case, no president anywhere in the world goes anywhere without weapons. No president. It doesn't happen. No president. Indeed, those who are complaining about Ibrahim Traore carrying his sidearm, did they see the visit of American presidents to Ghana? That's why they didn't complain. American presidents came to Ghana. Their security drove away the Ghanaian security completely. They took over everything, including the protection of our own president. And that one, you didn't complain because it's American president. I mean, look, this deliberate bias against us because we are Africans ought to stop. If American president can come and behave the way they behave with their security, this is nothing. And I think we should put it aside. The most important thing is the statements which have been made by President John Dramani Mahama consistently before, during, and after his inauguration. And that statement is very simple. It says, look, we in West Africa are the same people. And indeed, we are the same people. And he talks about the fact that people in Burkina Faso and in Ghana speak the same language, they have the same culture, and so on. In fact, if you go along the borders, whether it's La Côte d'Ivoire, Togo, or Burkina Faso, the people there don't recognize these artificially created borders. They move in and out as if there's no border. You understand? So that is the spirit which should lead us on. And this recklessness of some ECOWAS leaders in attempting to subvert Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger should not be tolerated by we the citizens. Why? They met and decided to take $20 million. The insult of it, $20 million from France to go and wage war on Niger, to take Ghanaian soldiers, Nigerian soldiers, and others to Niger to go and die. $20 million. Can you imagine? This is what we should be condemning. Now, there's a new atmosphere which may lead, and I say may lead to the resolution of the conflict between ECOWAS and the Alliance of Sahel States. Even if it doesn't lead to the resolution of that conflict, it provides a basis for developing a working relationship with the Alliance of Sahel States. And I'm happy, about that. I'm extremely happy about this development, which manifested, at the inauguration of President John Dramani Mahama. I'm so very happy that this development has manifested there. Yes, it is true there was a very large number of dignitaries from all over Africa and the world at that place. I cannot say for sure that this is the first time. I cannot. One, at independence, not so many African countries were independent and therefore could not send representations. But even the National Liberation Movement did send a lot. Okay.
Under the Fourth Republic.
Okay, no problem. I have been an issue with the Fourth Republic, but we can ignore that. You understand? So I'm not so sure that this is true. You understand? But be that as it may, it was an impressive turnout. of all sorts, and I mean all sorts of leaders, extreme right-wing leaders, dictators, people with democratic pretensions, and so on. Everybody was there, okay? To some extent, that is pretty confusing because you cannot use the attendance to judge the direction of the new head of state, okay? But in another vein, it may look impressive to the extent that he's able to deal with all these different people with different persuasions and so on. It may, some say, be a good omen for the new Africa that all of us aspire to construct. But it is interesting that strange people, you know, with strange relationships and so on, all trooped to the Independence Square, you know, for this obviously grand inauguration of President John, you know, Dramani Mahama. One of the questions which have been asked, and I'm sure all of you have heard that, is why the choice of Tinubu, the Nigerian head of state, a special guest of honor. And I've heard so many answers. One of the answers simply is that he's president of ECOWAS, and that immediately entitles him to be guest of honor. Well, what can I say? Can't say much if that is the reason. You understand? But it was brought in as a symbol of something. What is that symbol? Because Nigeria is in a far deeper economic mess than Ghana is now. There have been issues about his own democratic credentials which have not been resolved. There are issues even about who he says he is. We still don't know. We still don't know. Ah, Randy, you're here. Dr. Randy Abe is in the studio. Randy, I don't know how we can make you say hello to our you know, viewers and listeners, but you are here. Welcome, Randy. You know, maybe you can come to the camera and just give us a wave. You know, now that you have decided to abandon media work and so on, we are very, very happy to have you here, Randy. Yes, you know. And as a matter of fact, for those of you who do not remember, Randy was very, very instrumental in the development of ALHAJI and Alhaji. One of the very first people, you know. And I would beg him, I would urge him
just that
we appreciate that he's going on retirement. But Randy, find one day and come on ALHAJI and Alhaji as a panelist, you know, so that we can close this business.
He has retired as a host.
If I am retired, I'm great.
Anyway, so that's the point I was making. I mean, what does Tinubu symbolize and so on? But that is not a major issue again. It's just that it's being raised over and over again. And it's important to speak to all the issues, you know, which are being raised over and over again. Now, I know as a fact that not all those who wanted to be at the inauguration were able to come. Because of the arrangement, you know, the transitional arrangement, who was responsible for the invitation and so on. I know as a fact that the president of Algeria really wanted to come and participate in this ceremony. His invitation was sent to him a few days, maybe a few hours before the inauguration, and that made it impossible for him to come. I'm also very keenly aware of other heads of states who wanted to come. But because they got their invitation sometimes 24 hours before the inauguration, it was impossible for them to come. I don't want to believe that somebody deliberately delayed the invitation of others to keep them out. I don't want to believe that. You know, even though that suggestion is being made very strongly, that there are some heads of states whose invitations may have been deliberately delayed and so on. And that fits also into a topic that we'll be discussing much later. And it's a question of the suspension of relations with the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. May that be the reason why the president of Algeria was not given sufficient notice for him to come? May that be the reason? I don't know. Whatever it is, the inauguration is over. The pomp, the pageantry, all of that is over. And it's important for us to get back to work. And there are indications that we are getting back to work. I mean, yesterday, I saw this released from the presidency asking the Inspector General of Police to investigate election-related killings. And I was so very happy. It's an issue we have all raised over and over again. It's refreshing to think that those who commit murder would not be allowed to get away. But me, I cannot agree with what we are saying about dismissing the hierarchy of the police. On what basis? You don't understand the police institution? The police is a regimented organization. Can you envision the situation where today President Muhammad gives orders to the police and the police say, no, we will not take your orders? That would amount to mutiny. Yeah. Can you imagine a situation where the police is investigating a matter and even the Minister of Interior shows discomfort about it and so on? So what we need to do is to constantly insist and make sure that we elect leaders who are accountable. We elect leaders who will not abuse the police service. We elect leaders who will not abuse the military and so on. Because if you don't do that, and you have Bukasias and so on as leaders, your police cannot function. And if the police cannot function, it is not because the police has bad leaders. It is simply because this system does not work. That is why I pay particular serious attention to the suggestions which were made by ACP Agozo before he was arrested for this Cutlass coup and so on. You know, he had made recommendations about how to decouple the police from central political authority. We should pay some attention to that. Because for as long as the president or the vice president is chairman of the police council, for as long as the president continues to appoint Inspector General of Police, for as long as that chain of command, you know, and I mean effective chain of command, has a political authority sitting at the top, you cannot expect the police to perform its duties the way you expect. And if they don't, you don't blame the police hierarchy. You blame the system which makes them powerless and so on. I am impressed, and I'm genuinely impressed by the performance of our police. Look at the two by-elections before the general elections. Look at how those elections were conducted. The Sequestration constituency. If it hadn't been for the police, that result could not have been achieved. You understand? To the extent that political activists and even some wayward police officers and so on started planning to change the police hierarchy before elections because it was a danger to the ambitions of one political party and so on. We should take note of that. And we should commend the current police leadership for an excellent job. And I say this with all sincerity. Even this election, the calm and peace and so on. I mean, I don't know, maybe Mutala would know, but for those who have access to intelligence reports, it's a miracle that this election turned out the way it turned out. You understand? If you knew what was at stake before and even immediately after the elections and so on. And that is why sometimes, even though I'm uncomfortable with all these statements about Bawumia being a sportsman and having considered defeat and so on, sometimes it makes me a little uncomfortable, okay? But I allow it to go. Because if Dr. Bawumia had not considered defeat at the time that he did and so on, I don't know what would have happened based on the intelligence which is available. You understand? So he had no option. He had lost the elections.
And it was like overwhelming.
He had lost the elections. He had no option. I mean, it's not as if to say that if you lose election, you can say that you haven't lost and so on. If you've lost, you lost. You have to go. You understand? So he did what was expected for everybody who has lost elections. But based on the intelligence available, it is clear that if he hadn't done what he did at the time that he did, there could have been some other consequences, which may not have been, About the speech itself, the speech that the president made, that was not the speech of a Fidel Castro. Okay. That certainly was not the speech of a Sekou Touré. It was not the speech of an Nkrumah. It was not even the speech of a Nelson Mandela, and so on. Nonetheless, it was witty. Okay, it was witty. And I've heard many people, including some of the panelists here, say that at least there was no plagiarism. My goodness. But, look, that's an indication of how low we have sunk. If we are assessing presidential speeches and we are happy that they were not plagiarized, and because they were not plagiarized, they are good, what level is that? What depth have we sunk to?
Because of our history.
I mean, that's sinking too low. Presidential addresses should inspire hope. Presidential addresses should give us confidence. Presidential addresses should unite us. Presidential addresses should be about dreams of our people, dreams of our forebears, dreams about a new nation and so on. Presidential addresses should move us to action to resolve the concrete problems which confront us and so on. Not being plagiarized, I think is a very low standard, and we should move away from that. There are many issues which arise out of this inauguration, and I'm sure that we'll have the opportunity to discuss them. And now that Dr. Randy Abbey has committed to coming to the studio next week, I think Senna and his team should make the arrangements to make that possible. Yes.
Senna, there's this point, just the directive given by His Excellency the President. He was not saying that the police should investigate the matter, that they should submit to him a report of the investigation. So it's possible that they have done some investigation to the matter of the killings of those young men in the 2020 elections and then the subsequent elections. So I think that point should be made very clear. The impression should not be created as if the police haven't done any work as far as those killings were concerned. But he just wants them to furnish him with the report of how far they have gone with the investigation. It's possible investigation could be done, but the political will to act upon the investigation is what is missing. It's possible.
But if you read
I fully agree with you, because I know for a fact, and I know this for a fact, that Ahmed Swali, his assassination, has been fully investigated by the police. Okay. I know that the police did an excellent work on the assassination of Ahmed Swali. The problem has been a gap between the investigation and action. Now, for those of us who sit in the public, who are not privy to what happens in the police service, our conclusion is that the matter has not even been investigated and so on. What President Muhammad has done is to empower the police to go back to their files and so on, to begin to conclude the processes that the police has already started. I think, look, we should be fair to this police service. You remember that chap who was killed, the chap who was doing taekwondo and others with the police and so on?
Is it Rambo?
Yes.
Ninja.
Whose body was actually buried in an uncompleted house and so on. The police, within a matter of weeks, were able to investigate to find the killers. This Ghana police, the Achia Mensah case, that's history, was able to investigate and establish the killers of Achia Mensah and so on. The police has a record, an impeccable record of achievement. And the Ghana Police Service has some of the best investigators in the world. I mean, the former IGP, Appiaji, is one, Apietu, thank you, boss. Apietu, look at his record. An excellent forensic investigator and so on. I mean, you look at somebody like Kofi Boakye and his record. So we have the men. And we have the facilities to carry out investigations if we do not have political interference, you know. So we should be soft on the police service. I don't know if any of us were IGP or deputy IGP or whatever, we could have done better than what these people have done, given the kind of political pressure that the police has come under over the years.
But isn't it a bad culture?
I'm even coming because the point is that I am yet to hear from any IGP make the points that they have always been pressured. The current IGP has not come out to tell us that he is always under pressure from the presidency. So
But
all
then he
that,
says that he has to leave office.
no, then you have to, because the point is that you are there to maintain law and order.
So that is the point. That is the point Sina was making. If you look at our constitutional arrangement, based on the statement that was made by the gentleman who is now
ACP
being
Agboju.
prosecuted for, if you look at the structure, it's virtually tied the hands of those, you know, security forces at the expense of the appointing authority. It's like the loyalty is not to the state, but the loyalty must be to
But
the
that is
appointing
not
authority.
that's not what the Constitution says.
No, I'm saying
The
that it's-
Constitution is
So
so
now
clear.
we would accept.
So the Constitution is so clear.
Solo and me, you see, sometimes when we are taking public positions, we need to ask ourselves questions.
Yes.
ACP Agboju came out boldly
Lele.
and criticized this current arrangement.
Yes.
And said it does not make for good policing.
Yes.
Look at what he went through. How many of you stood up in solidarity with him?
You see,
Look at the pain he and his family had to go through and so on. So we sit here and say, why? They should defy authority. Defy authority, would you feed his family? Defy authority. When we drag him before the court, would you be with him? So don't let us behave like that.
no, but
We
the
don't
point,
do our part.
the point must also be made that you don't go and take a position that you are expected to do A, B, C, D, and refuse to do that and come and tell us that because you are pressured.
So they haven't.
They are
refused
not
to do-
expected to do ABC.
Yes.
The constitution, by its very nature, makes them subordinate to political
political
authority.
No, but they also enjoy some level of independence.
From where? Read it from the
Then
constitution.
the Constitution doesn't say that.
Read it from the constitution.
The Constitution
Why the
says-
police service enjoys independence.
Why is it, if granted that they enjoy some level of independence, why is it that it takes the vice president to chair a committee where the security, or even the president, if you talk about the military and then the police and other security, you know, forces, that the one who chairs the committee must be a politician? Why is it so?
No, but
It's the hold on.
I mean,
it is the constitution that guarantees that.
Then,
why is it that the
then,
RECSEC?
we have
Why is
no
it that the
business
RECSEC?
whatsoever accusing the Electoral Commission, because then the Electoral Commissioner is appointed by the president and so must be kowtowing to the dictates of the president.
constitution-
I mean, we cannot be. No, all these are appointments that are made by the president. What I'm saying.
So it's not
Yes.
the
It's not
appointment.
only by
But yeah,
the electoral commission, for example,
Yes.
can lay a constitutional instrument which becomes law before parliament.
Yeah.
Without reference to the attorney
General
general,
Minister
without
of
reference
Justice.
to president and so on.
They
Can
can
the
do
police do that?
but that still doesn't take the fact that
No, but in any
he
case,
or she is appointed by the president.
You can't compare the two. You can't compare the electoral
They should be
commission.
working and stop that there is pressure from here or there. That what has to happen.
You want people to do things that you are not ready to do.
But they should put me there. They should put me there. They should put me
Why do you
there.
think that the IGP should sacrifice the
But
interest of
Mr.
the
Pratt,
family
in
and
one
you are
breath,
not
but
sacrificing yours?
Mr. Pratt, in one breath, they did so well during the by-election at Ascent.
So if you contest this, even the general elections, I can tell you, Tamale Central, but for the professionalism of the police service, things would have happened in a way that would have.
Thank you. Well, we have to bring it to conclude on this particular topic. Anyway, it's nice to see Dr. Randy Abe. In fact, if I had my former mic, there's no better a time to have you on a panel than this time. But unfortunately, I don't have my former mic. Anyway, but we hope to see you. We hope to see you soon. And well, we have to move on to other discussions. But before we do that, let me just go through. Let me first say a big thank you to the radio stations that are currently tuning to us live. They are broadcasting us live for their listeners to listen. Shine FM in Akachi 96.9, Hills FM in Adakulu 91.7, Nyawase Radio in Ketekrachi on 89.7, Stellar Radio Dabala 97.1, Diamond FM in Tamale is on 93.7, Dora Radio in Yendi is on 106.5, Radio Kitao in Saboba on 95.7, Benya FM Elmina 105.7, Global FM in Ho is on 105.1, Zeps FM in Zebila on 95.9, True FM 92.5 in Ades, Olamara FM 89.1 in Tripoli. There's Boem 88.7 FM in Jessica and Lukusi 96.1 in Vengolokwati, Tyne FM 90.9. There is Sekbele FM 104.3, Akpini Radio in Kpando, Denyigba Radio 90.9 FM, NOT Radio in Dambai. Big thank you to all of you for giving us your platform. Don't forget, this show is live on Pan-African Television, live on Radio Gold, live on social media, on the pages of Pan-African Television. First, let me do, just on the matter of, in fact, the matter of the sidearms, I think a few things came up when Traore came. People were raising questions about whether a junta leader should have been invited in the first place. And there's a security analyst who does the job of trying to explain out, but I will just read a point on the sidearm issue. Is that on the question of whether Captain Ibrahim Traore breached any security protocols, I must state with authority that he did not. The Ghanaian public should understand that the absence of any objection or intervention from the close security team of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, including his bodyguards, indicate that Captain Traore adhered to the established rules, procedures, and practices designed to ensure safety, confidentiality, and order. This compliance would have been evident to all security personnel present, including those strategically positioned at key points. The seamless coordination among the security team underscores that Captain Traore's actions aligned with the protocols agreed upon for the event. But this also came up when we were doing the Gold Morning conversation on Radio Gold a few days back, and there's a military man who responded. In fact, he serves even in the U.S. Army. He says, Senate insecurity, threat equals intent plus capability. He can have the capacity, that's the possession of the arm. But if no intent, he does not pose a threat. Likewise, if there is intent, but it doesn't have the capability, no threat. So that was his contribution. Just a few comments, then we'll move on to the next discussion. This from Asanko in Santa Maria. May I know from the leadership of the super micro minority in Parliament whether it is no more spiritually dangerous to sit on a minority seat in Parliament? Per the diabolical conduct of this UP MPP over the years, can they claim to have the interests of this country at heart? Can they tell us what they had done over the years that had benefited this country or that has contributed to peace in the country? Thank you for that comment. A few more. There's a lot of hellos and good morning to me. Good morning to you too. There's Togbe Charlie from Tema. Sana, please. Okay. Thank you very much. There's this one says, Sana, there are thousands of positives.
Did you read anything to it?
From Snet, who says, Sana, there are thousands of positives we can point at during the inauguration. But what is wrong is wrong. And I don't think we should try and justify the gun matter because of the position of the personality involved. It was a disturbing thing to behold, and I think our authorities could have handled it better, keeping it from the eyes and judgmental minds of the Ghanaian public and those far from us. I've seen a comparison of him with Putin, Putin without a gun by his side. Our mindset and the way we see things are different, but let us not justify this and repeat it tomorrow as a country. What we must focus on is how to be taken serious and others obeying our wishes, even if it's USA or Burkina Faso. Thank you. Snet sent that one. Thank you. There's Yakubu from Tema, who is also joining us. What I have to say is Ghana can build itself if we first do away with foreign military base in Ghana. We have to learn from Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. At the moment, we did not vote for NDC. We voted for Ghana. So whether it's NDC or MPP, for now, it is Ghana we are working for. Yakubu, thank you for that comment. There's this one from Alines Peki Jack. Says the irony of an IGP. This IGP's tenure saw NDC winning Jechikwesin's seat in a by-election, as well as this general election. But many NDC commentators, etc., want him out. What an irony. Thank you for the comment. Good morning. Senator, I sometimes wonder how MPP takes Ghanaians for granted. Look at the Free Senior High School and the energy sector crisis just few days after they left office. I'm a Kwama from Christian from Odomi. Thank you for sending in those comments. Let me go to a few more. This one, Solomon, also needs to be promoted due to positive contribution in ALHAJI and Alhaji, and also the president's not looking on the prescription and delivery. Was not looking on the. No, actually, he was actually using a prompter, and I think that thing came up.
No, Mr. Pratt has already been the director of Pan Africa. What a position!
You the receiver of the
No, I'll thank you. I have to thank you.
There's Alhaji Yafuseni who says, I think most of those who are blaming the security of Ghana for allowing the leader of Burkina carrying his gun closer to the president are very young, and I want to let them know that Thomas Sankara was always in Ghana with his troops and even organizes military exercises in Ghana. That is Rawlings's time within late 1980s and 1990s before he was overthrown by his own man.
And he always carried his gun.
Yeah.
Like that. See the photographs.
But he didn't carry this gun when he went to Russia. When he met Putin.
So,
Sami?
I was there when Tuari came to the Russia-Africa summit. I was in the room.
With
I
Putin.
wasn't an outsider. His people carried the weapons all the way into the room. He's a head of state, for God's sake, he's a head of state.
His people.
yeah.
Now, why do you even think that he could come here, be invited for the inauguration of John Dramani Mahama, and he will shoot John Dramani Mahama?
Hey,
What makes you think that?
And we are saying, why would he think that?
No, you see, in any case, let's
You see,
understand.
in Russia, he didn't put the sidebar on.
No, but,
His people had
but
it.
it's important. It's important to put this in context. We should not underestimate the relationship between President Tuari and the outgoing president. And man, you are indicated that the organization of the swearing in was not done exclusive of the incoming government. To a very large extent, the security arrangement and everything were done by the outgoing government, who demonstrated a hostile posture against the president of Burkina. So under that circumstance, even though it was a new president who was being sworn in, but he was well aware that the security arrangements were all done by a president who has shown hostile attitude towards him publicly.
So he
That
was
was
invited by.
so I'm saying that,
he was invited by
is that like when you
the-
want to sleep in the compound of your enemy, you must sleep with one eye open. And I guess precisely that's what he did. And in any case, to allow him to hold the gun, I believe that the security agencies and arrangement, if they never approved that, he wouldn't have done that. Who approved that?
Well, thank you.
But
Thank you,
you
comrade.
see, I mean,
Just
I
finally.
hope this will be
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
final comment.
Finally.
Listen, all of you who are talking about democracy and military rulers as well. This president, young 35-year-old military man, got the loudest applause at the Black Star Square.
Yes.
His popularity
Yes.
in West Africa and the world is beyond doubt. If you like, let's organize West African elections and pitch him against any of the so-called democratically elected presidents, see who will win the election. What is this fixation about?
We are yet to do that.
I am telling you for sure.
And there have been several
Traore is
attempts
more
to
popular
his life.
than any.
But
Would
popularity
it-
does not
would it-
translate into winning an election. Either than that, Lumumba would have won an election in Kenya. It doesn't translate.
Who told you that?
Popularity, at times he was popular than President Buffon in this country. But at times he wouldn't, absolutely. So it is not automatic that being popular will lead you
I think
to
we have to
He
move
was just being
we have
notorious.
an hour to go.
Well,
and we have two topics.
Which one is
even,
the
even if those threats,
Yes.
even if those threats exist,
not
we
encourage
shouldn't also doubt the competence of our security agencies. That even on that day, without our eyes seeing, there were snipers around. It's something I did not want to mention on open, but I don't see, with all the level of dignitaries around, that there wouldn't be snipers around. So even if an attempt was made, right? I mean, the attempt will be neutralized before it may cause any harm.
You also agree with me that
Thank you.
all the
Thank you.
Pushing
Thank
this
you.
into
Let's leave it there. Let's leave it
Yes.
there. In fact, sitting in front of Solo is a daily graphic
Harry
front
is
page.
not a madman.
Mr. Brother,
Front page, you
you are not
see
stretching it.
energy crisis looms, and that's our very next discussion.
We are discussing.
Because already we are raising the issue of power, electricity supply. Is the first thing that confronts the incoming government. Aside there also the matter of feeding in the senior high school. But the very first thing that they are dealing with is the issue of power, ensuring that the lights stay on. So we're going back. That power crisis ahead, that's a question we're raising, and what urgently needs to be done to deal with it. I'll start once again with Comrade Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed on that.
First and foremost, I think that for me, everything any government does or any political party does, to a very large extent, must be influenced by suspicion and perception sometimes. We have had people who have said through social media, long before the handing over ceremony was done, that the agenda of the MPP government or the outgoing government at the time was to plunge this nation into doom. So those statements, and you might have heard, some even said it on radio and on TV. As to what information they had, we do not know. But I guess that those statements were informed by the impending challenges that confronted us as a state. So let no one be deceived into thinking that this was just by some accident. It was deliberately occasioned by the outgoing government to subject this country into such challenges. And I say this because the government long knew that for them to even go in for acquisition of oil or acquisition of oil for the purposes of powering, our machines to provide us with the necessary electricity takes about 21 days. So everything you do, you need to have some plan. They never did that. They left us with crude that only lasts 5 hours. Even though the argument is that in some aspects you have about 21 hours, but in most of them, just 5 hours. The question is that if they knew that this was not going to be enough, why didn't they request for same? Because I've heard the argument that because Parliament refused to allow the government to present a budget. Yesterday I had one MPP communicator. But they brought those things in Parliament and Parliament refused to do that. That was completely misleading. It had nothing to do with acquisition. This thing would have been factored into the budget for last year. That at this particular point in time, in their planning, between this period to this period, this is what we are going to request. Be it as it may, assuming without admitting that Parliament even refused to do what they were expecting Parliament to do, you come to Parliament with some conditions, telling Parliament that if you want us to present a budget for the purposes of taking care of the first quarter of 2025, you need to also agree to approve the judges who were appointed and whose vetting was done by the Committee of Parliament. You also need to agree to give government the go-ahead to give those tax exemptions of hundreds of millions of dollars to entities that clearly have some relationship with the president and the then government. And Parliament said we're not going to do that. That we're not going to do that because those exemptions were unacceptable. You cannot be going in for a loan of about $150 million when you are giving tax exemptions to companies amounting to over $300 million. It never made any sense to anybody. Now, so you realize that they are now desperately tying the challenges that are confronting us, assuming without admitting that that was even the reason. They never requested for the needed crude to take care of the machines to give us the necessary energy. So it was deliberately done. Let no one be deceived into thinking that it was just by accident. It had nothing to do with parliament refinement. It has nothing to do with money. It has to do with they wanted to saddle this government with this challenge. Because mind you, Dumso was used largely in the 2016 elections. Even though the NDC found solution to Dumso, by August 2016, we never had Dumso. We went into the elections in 2016 without Dumso. So what? That it was his responsibility. Yet, in the elections for 2020, they used Dumso, knowing